Rusty, welcome back to Archers of Horror.
Yes, another episode.
Love the energy. On this podcast, we watch every horror release from Arrow Video. And this week on our podcast, we've got Maniac Cop.
Yeah, it's a movie that I've always wanted to watch. And we did it.
You know, Rusty, this film ties into current events quite naturally because I saw in the newspaper today that 60 to 70% of cops are, in fact, maniac cops.
Shit, you really think a cop did this? Why not?
As I was watching it, I was thinking that we're going to have two different perspectives on it.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. You might surprise me.
Well, I'm positive that I have the right perspective on this.
Okay.
I did not think this movie was bad. I thought it wasn't like Hellgate, which was just torture.
Yeah.
Hi, honey. Do you have that apple pie ready that I ordered for my daddy?
It had a lot of like little Larry Cohen touches that I liked, but so many obvious things that could have been better that you're like, why wasn't that better?
Yeah, actually, I hate that we're so agreeable, but I guess the best summation for this is that it's a bad good film, or a good bad film. I would say good bad film.
A good bad film.
It was good, but the characters are very static. There's no character arcs. Like by the end of the film, we didn't learn anything about the characters, or neither did they. It was just point A to point B.
Wow, that's what you wanted, to learn stuff about the characters from the film Maniac Cop?
Well, I was expected, the character of Bruce Campbell, he started off as kind of like a scummy character, but he never really changed. Not in my opinion.
Since when is my personal life any of your business?
The first time I watched this movie, I had no idea Bruce Campbell was in it. When he showed up, I was like, do they know Bruce Campbell's in this movie?
You know what the weird thing is? That Bruce Campbell said that it's not a good film that he was in, but yet he wound up in Maniac Cop 2. So they got him back for the next one, for the sequel.
Interesting. I wanted to watch Maniac Cop 2 because it sounds kind of like I might be more into that one.
How so? I don't know much about Maniac Cop 2, although I do want to see it.
What I've heard about it is that he is like more of like an undead Jason type, and there's more outrageous kind of stunts and stuff like that. And he's like a zombie.
Well, I'm going to stop you there and say that I think Maniac Cop is kind of like a zombie in this film, that he's kind of the undead. I mean, there's a few moments where clearly any normal human being would be totally dead.
It couldn't have just been a bulletproof vest. I hit him in the head at least twice.
Rusty, do you like the so this movie starts, the Arrow Blu-ray starts with Tom Atkins giving a little intro into the film.
Yeah.
Do you like those intros?
I was going to say we would be remiss if we didn't discuss those intros, because I feel like they have him at gunpoint. I felt like Frank had a lot of that. They had him in a room, and you're like, you're not leaving until you give us a quick quote introducing the film. And same with Tom Atkins, because he really had no idea what he was going to say before they passed the mic to him.
Hi, I'm Tom Atkins. Thrill Me. Take a look at the UK DVD version of Maniac Cop.
I actually kind of like them just because they're so corny, but they're a really weird choice.
Yeah, I like that he gave away the movie, that he gets killed halfway through it.
I think you'll get a big kick out of me going out the window later on in the film, but not too much later.
The weird thing is I was positive Tom Atkins was dead. I was positive he was dead.
Yeah, you asked me about that.
So to find out he's alive is a treat for him and for me.
Well, the really funny thing is that you were so sure that he was dead, and there's like, well, maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. The guy that's in the fog, I'm in that same guy. And then like, oh, what about the guy from Halloween 3? He's dead, right? It's the same guy.
I know that someone is dead, though. I know someone's dead. And he was a very similar actor to Tom Atkins. And he was married to an actress that was in his most notable film. And he died in like 86. That's all I know.
I have no idea who you could possibly be thinking of.
I think it's Tom Atkins.
Did you happen to check out Tom Atkins' IMDb?
Oh, I've learned so much about Tom Atkins, who just say that I'll be in Pittsburgh. I don't know if you'll be there too at the end of July. So maybe we'll bump into Tom Atkins, who lives there.
Hi.
Wow. Maybe you could take him to a Pirates game.
Maybe I can. Maybe I can.
Sure. We'll all be inseparable.
I really like him though. I feel like he's like one of those old school gritty actors.
Oh yeah.
Like he plays those characters really well. I think he always plays the same character, so he's definitely like typecast. But like how like every time I see him in a movie, I'm just like, oh, I like this guy. Like Halloween, like he said, Halloween 3 and The Fog and Night of the Creeps and Creepshow. Like all those movies, it's just like, oh wait, I like this guy. Who is this? And I can never remember his name, but I probably will now.
He seems very down to earth. He seems like the kind of guy who's given oil changes to like the Grips cars in between scenes. So, happy to help out. Happy to be here. Russ, you ever known a Maniac Cop?
Well, I don't want to go on air and saying who I think could be a Maniac Cop, but I'm sure we both have some suspicions.
I don't know who you're referring to specifically, but I do know a lot of real Maniac Cops. But I also
that you're friends with?
No. But I thought of a story about a Maniac Cop that is still with me to this day.
Is it the Nintendo Zapper one? Because I like that story.
Oh, we actually have audio of the Nintendo Zapper thing, but I wonder if we could get that and edit it into this. Okay, first I'll tell. No. I'll tell the. Okay, sorry. Well, the Nintendo Zapper story. I was driving with our friend Nick across country, and to drop off a car for my brother in Boulder, Colorado, where he had moved to, and we were driving all through the night, and I fucked up. We're driving all day, and we're not all through the night. We did drive all through the night one night, but we're driving all day. And my rule on the road was always like, try to go to the nicest place you can for dinner, but like, other meals, just fucking get through it. However, like whatever easiest way. And so we get to like some random town and find like a steakhouse that like looks like not nice, but whatever. And this is like in Ohio, I think. And we're getting out of the car, and I notice these two women are like staring at us through the window, and I'm like, why are they staring at us? And we go inside and sit down, and like the women who are like maybe like 5 years older than us just keep looking over at us and like talking to each other and like smiling at us. And I was like, oh my God, Nick, I think these women want to have sex with us. And
that's your first thought.
We're like eating and like just keep looking over, like keep catching them looking at us. I'm just like, what the hell is going on? And then when they're leaving, they come up to us at our table and they're like, just so you know, here in Ohio, we don't go to dinner with our ass crack showing. Because I guess when I got out of the car, my like pants were like so low. My ass
it wasn't even Nick?
No, it wasn't even Nick. And they saw like our New York plates, and I was just like, and like they walked away, and I was like, I can't believe that. And
why did she let you go through dinner with your ass crack?
Well,
out?
because the ass crack was only visible when I was getting out of the fucking thing. It's not like she could see my butt while I'm sitting at the booth. But I think because
why say anything at all at that point?
Because I think they were assholes, and I think they were drinking like big kind of mudslidey kind of drinks. So then they were like 4 deep, and they're like, let's confront these guys. And I was just stunned. Couldn't believe someone would be that rude, especially about my butt crack. And
well, the big question is, okay,
what was the big question?
Did you have sex with them?
No. And so we get in the car, and I'm just like, Nick, we got to get the fuck out of this state right now. I don't want to be in Ohio anymore. So
peeling out of the parking lot.
I get on the highway, and I'm going like 90 miles an hour, and I see like a cop, and I'm like, oh fuck. Like as soon as I passed the cop, I knew, like, you know, when you just know, you see the lights come on and come up behind you. And so I see that, I'm like, oh motherfucker. And I was like, I hate this state. So I pull over, and as we're waiting for the cop to come up to us, I remembered that I have a Nintendo Zapper in the glove compartment. And the reason I have a Nintendo Zapper in the glove compartment was because my parents had moved out of our house on Long Island and moved to an apartment in Brooklyn. And they hadn't sold the house yet because it was like the financial crisis and you couldn't sell a house. And so they were just waiting. And in the meantime, they'd moved out all of their stuff. And so the whole house was empty except for my room, as I've said on this podcast before. And I kept thinking to myself, well, if I just had a car, I could get all my stuff and I'd bring it back to California. But then when finally I had a car and I could do this, the only things I brought with me were a Nintendo Zapper and a figure of Lino from Thundercats. And as I'm sitting there, like waiting for the cop, I realized the Zapper's in the glove compartment. And I'm like, oh, I hope this fucking guy doesn't think this is a gun. And so he like comes in, like walks up and he does the whole thing. Nick opens up the registration and the Zapper is like sticking out. And I'm just like, oh, I hope this guy doesn't notice the Zapper. And he,
wait, was it the original? Was it the original Zapper or was it the red one? Oh, it wasn't the red.
No, it's the gray and white. Classic.
But you spray painted it black for your suicide by cop.
No, that was the Sega Master System gun. That's what I have that one for. But so the cop didn't notice the Zapper, and just as Nick is like closing the glove compartment, he's like, "Hey, open that glove compartment." And I'm like, "Oh, that's just a Nintendo Zapper." And he's like, "What?" I was like, "A Nintendo Zapper?" He's like, "What?" I was like, "For playing Duck Hunt. You know the game Duck Hunt? It was an old video game." And the guy's like, "What's Duck Hunt?" I'm like, "What's Duck Hunt?" Like, I mean, he was an older cop, but come on, like Duck Hunt was a kind of a cultural phenomenon. I would think that this guy probably is a hunter, probably should appreciate Duck Hunt.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to reference a game with a Nintendo Zapper, it's got to be Duck Hunt.
He's like, that goddamn dog is the reason I became a cop.
Always laughing at me.
But actually, the Maniac Cop I was going to tell you about also ties into video games. I'll try to keep this very brief because I'm not sure if it's interesting or not.
Oh boy.
I'll never forget, I was in Wantagh Park on Long Island, and I was walking with the Foot Brothers.
The world famous Foot Brothers.
And we were talking about Street Fighter 2. And we were arguing about the sound that Chun-Li makes.
Which sound?
Chita!
Like when she gets hit?
That's that sound. And Tim Foot was like, Yatta! And right after he said that, this cop who had jogged by with his baby in a stroller, he turns around and he's like, "What the fuck did you say?" And we were like, what? And he's like, "You got something to say? Sit to my fucking face, you pussies."
A cop said that to you?
Yeah, and he was like 40 and we were 13. And he's like, "Pussy won't even stand up for your words? Won't stand up for your words?" And he was
what was the end game there? I'm curious to know.
We were just like, what is going on here? Man, ever since that day, I've wondered where that guy was, and I hope he's dead now because he was definitely he's definitely not a good member of society.
But I really want to know what he was planning. What was his end game? Like, did he want to arrest you? Did he want you to like talk back or?
No, I think he wanted to fight. Like he was looking for a fight.
Imagine looking out your window and seeing 3 13-year-olds fighting a cop, like a 40-year-old cop.
I wonder if we could have Voltroned him. One of us, it's basically 2 on 3 because it's him and his baby. So one of us could just take the baby. I'm like, I'll take the baby. I've got him taken out. So the other 2 focus on the cop. That's how you win on the streets.
You win. Perfect.
So how did that end? Did he just leave you guys alone?
Yeah, he left and he was like, "Fucking pussies." And like, we were just confused. The whole time was like, how do we even explain to this guy what we're talking about? Chun-Li?
I do have a cop story myself. It's very short, so I'll just get through it very quickly. But I was skateboarding one day when I was 13, and a cop pulled up next to me and he said, "You're not wearing a helmet." And I said, I'm 13. I didn't think I had to. And he goes, "No, you have to wear a helmet in New York State. So I'm going to have to confiscate your skateboard." So I'm just like, I'd never heard of that. And I said, "My dad's a police officer." And he would have told me that. And he's just like, "Well, these are the laws around here. So I'm taking your skateboard." And he put it in his trunk. He took my skateboard, put it in his trunk and started to close it. And then my mom, luckily it was like around the block and my mom saw it. And she's like, started to complain to him and said that she was going to report him to my dad and stuff. And he's just like, "All right, I'll let you guys slide." But like, to this day, I wonder, was he just trying to steal my skateboard to give to his kid?
That was Tony Hawk.
That was Tony. He was trying to get his
He was undercover. He needed that skateboard back. He was like, "I'm not proud of this product. This is a very elaborate masquerade. I'm getting these boards back."
I'm amazed because I actually did have it was a Tony Hawk deck, so I'm surprised that the one skater you probably know happened to be the deck that I had.
Tony Hawk does kind of have the inbred look of a cop. Rusty, do you think this slasher, if you could call it that, I think you could, Maniac Cop, do you think it should have been huge?
No, definitely not. It's a B movie.
Yeah.
B movie at best.
Well, yeah, but so is like, here's my overarching? No one knows. Here's my question. Freddy, Jason.
Wait, you have to repeat that.
Freddy, Jason,
Yeah.
Chucky.
Oh, not Chucky.
Yeah, Chucky's in there. Who else? Michael Myers, of course.
Leatherface.
Yeah, Leatherface. Let's not go Pinhead, but I'll go Candyman.
Candyman, yeah.
But Maniac Cop, what could he have done to make it into that? Because clearly they wanted to make him one of those. And some people might say he's like a C-level horror icon, but I don't even think he's that. But what could have been done to make this a more classic killer?
Man, you're putting me on the spot with that question, but there's probably several things.
I could tell you because I wrote them down.
Wow.
First of all, I would say that the Maniac Cop has a shitty weapon.
What, the baton with a sword in it or a knife?
Yeah, it's really a knife.
Yeah.
Like the baton is good because that is a cop thing, but a knife, that's not a cop thing.
He always had a sidearm on, too, but he never used it. Except in the end, I think he got a hold of a shotgun somehow. I think he grabbed it from like one of the cops that he was wrestling with.
Yeah, he did do that sweet one-arm shotgun move.
Yeah, but he didn't hit anything with it. Or no.
That raised another issue for me. I looked up how lethal shotguns are, and
well, we could find out.
Would you let me shoot you with a shotgun from 300 meters away for $1,200?
Wait, what kind of shot are we talking about? Are we talking bird shot, buckshot? What are we
bird shot. It's bird shot, so you'll probably survive.
Yeah, you probably would survive that, right?
I think so.
Can I shield my eyes?
No, you can wear safety goggles. I'm not a monster. So here's my things to make Maniac Cop a classic horror icon. Give him a better weapon. All of his shit should always be consistent with being a cop. Like, I feel like they kind of got away with the knife thing a little bit just because they put him in kind of like a policeman's dress uniform. But I feel like he should have been in a regular cop uniform and he should have used cop weapons.
See, I think I agree with that, but I think he had some things going for him as well.
No, he did. What do you think he had going for him?
He's very mysterious. There wasn't much of a backstory about him. He never speaks.
He does never speak.
So I kind of like that. Like, we don't know anything about him. And I like that it remains that way. Like, from beginning to end, just like, oh, here, this Maniac Cop turns up again. The fact that he turns up into one of the precincts and he's just killing cops left and right without anybody firing around. I mean, that makes him pretty interesting.
I don't remember that, but that does sound like a good scene.
See, the thing that I'm lost on is he seemed like kind of more of a secondary character. Like, the Maniac Cop was loose in the city, but like the character himself wasn't that important. But yet, like, who was the primary character? Who was the protagonist? It certainly wasn't Tom Atkins. He died 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah, it's a really weird structure for the movie. When it shifts from Tom Atkins to Bruce Campbell, you're just like, what am I watching? Like, what is happening now?
Get out of my office.
Rusty, I'll tell you one more thing that holds Maniac Cop back from being a horror icon, and that's his name. You know, I think Maniac Cop is a good name for a movie. Actually, a great name for a movie.
Maniac Cop? How's that for a tag?
I knew I could count on you to sensationalize it the best way.
But Matt Cordell, horrible name.
Yeah, well, the other thing I was going to add is that his origin story is not as compelling as like the backstory for Freddy Krueger or Jason or Chucky.
He could have had a backstory that worked so much better.
His backstory was that he was just a cop that really liked to take advantage of being a cop and hurting people.
He was kind of like Vic Mackey from The Shield, which would have been a better name for the Maniac Cop. Vic Mackey? That sounds fucking good.
Yeah. What was his quote that he shot first, asked questions later?
I mean, after that, the questions are kind of different questions.
Yeah, but the thing that is that how he became, I guess, undead almost, but not really, was that he was what was it, shanked in prison in the shower. So then, like, where the coroner thought he might be dead, actually wasn't, and then released him.
He had severe brain damage. I was certain that he was legally dead.
To his kind of on and off girlfriend.
The on and off girlfriend with like the cane and the limp, and she's like kind of crazy. I feel like I could end up with someone like that.
She was really definitely a second thought too. It seemed like she was just slapped in there. Just like, because he can't communicate, so we have to have somebody communicate on his behalf.
In the did you watch the features on this Arrow Blu-ray?
No, I didn't do it this time.
Are you fucking kidding me? I watched all of them.
Wait, there were special features? I thought there was just an interview with Tom Atkins and with what's her name? Oh boy, Lorene Landon.
And the Larry Cohen one.
Oh, there was a Larry Cohen one?
But they were all really good interviews, because I find that like on the Arrow Blu-rays, everyone's so honest. And Lorene Landon said like a lot of interesting things. She talks about how Bruce Campbell liked her during the movie, but he was married. So she was like, we got close one day, but not too close. But then we went on like a date later, and it was just weird. I wasn't attracted to him anymore. And he seemed like he was really into his career. And I don't know, I didn't like him as much. I was just like, wow, this is crazy stuff to say in an interview.
Yeah, and plus it's the film taking place in real life. Like that's pretty much their role in the film.
Yeah, that's true.
He was a married man that was having an affair.
Hey, that's, oh my God. I wonder if there was also a cop stalking them.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It's just a side thought that I had about Bruce Campbell. Do you remember the times where like you always wanted to put on like a horror movie marathons in your basement and have just people come in and watch?
You mean, is that a rhetorical question or me specifically?
You specifically.
Yeah, I guess so.
But you specifically. But like, do you remember? I don't know if this is true or not. If I'm misremembering things wrong, but didn't somebody say that they could get Bruce Campbell to come? It was such a weird thought. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, but I don't know who said that.
And I always thought it would be strange to be watching horror movies in your basement with Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, especially I don't think he lived in the area.
He's going to fly in just for you. His career was on a lull then. Like,
yeah, that's so funny. Have Bruce Campbell come to, and you know, it was a pre-internet era for the most part, and so it was like harder to know about cool movies. But would Bruce Campbell really want to come see like a bunch of 18-year-olds watch Dawn of the Dead for the first time?
His agent was like, Bruce, I got a gig for you.
He's like,
it doesn't pay anything, but you'll be watching some movies with some 17-year-old geeks. Who even presented that? That's what I want to know. But then there was also the follow-up that Pete from Pete and Pete, the taller Pete, the older brother Pete. Remember, he was supposed to come to watch movies?
Well, him I did hang out with once because he went to SUNY Purchase with that guy, Brett and Adam. And like, I just remember we went there and we went out like in the woods. And I just remember him being like, it's bullshit that the show got canceled. It's a good goddamn show. And I was just like, wow, that's weird stuff. So here's my question about the plot of this film. The first kill of this movie, which is a clever scene. Oh, I was going to say that in the interview with Larry Cohen, he mentions that he wrote the script in 10 days. Not a surprise. Not a surprise. It's not like hearing about Sylvester Stallone writing Rocky in 48 hours or whatever that was, which I think is bullshit, and being like, wow, really? Or Kevin Williamson writing Scream really quick. This one, I'm like, 10 days sounds about right.
Well, I'm sure Larry Cohen was doing a lot of cocaine too.
Whoa.
So it's possible.
He doesn't strike me as a cocaine guy. Really? Is he? I don't know. What do you know about it?
I mean, it's the late 70s, early 80s. Larry Cohen. I mean, New York City writer. Cocaine flowing.
He seems like I don't know. I don't know if he seems like the type. But yeah, so the opening scene is like a clever enough scene that's kind of like you could see like Larry Cohen being like, oh, I know exactly how this movie's got to open. And
that was a great opening though. That was probably the best scene.
Yeah, it's just, it's a good, like, how are you going to open a movie called Maniac Cop? You're going to have someone fleeing from a crime, going to a cop, thinking that they're saved, and then getting murdered. That's just good writing by Larry Cohen. And I also like that the woman identifies them as Puerto Rican guys.
Oh, thank God it's you. These two Puerto Rican guys just trying to mug me.
It's very New York of the time period.
Yeah, very New York. You know what I want to know? Whatever happened to those two guys? Because they were roughly apprehended.
It was a cop, man, big cop.
And they, confessed that they were going to mug her, but they didn't. And that she was killed by a cop, which Tom Atkins believed. But whatever happened to them? Did they remain imprisoned?
Well, when we kick off that Maniac Cop cinematic universe, there's going to be a movie about those two guys showing everything leading up to how they ended up in a life of crime. But here's the thing. So the woman who was killed in the beginning, she works at a bar where a lot of cops go, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Tom Atkins knows her.
Yeah. But does the Maniac Cop kill her for any specific reason, or he just kills her?
I think the Maniac Cop's killings are completely random, because that was the whole reason why his love interest was upset with what he was doing.
But I thought it would be the dealers and the junkies and all the human garbage that you'd be cleaning the city of. Not all them poor people just minding their business.
I felt like that scene was written, I feel like, maybe Larry Cohen, if he was using cocaine, like around page 50, he was like, wait a second, I fucked up and this doesn't make a lot of sense. So I got to put in a scene where the woman says, why aren't you killing the people involved in your storyline? You're killing random people.
Yeah, he really had some poor planning, because none of it added up to what his end goal was. And when he did finally kill the commissioner, he just did it so randomly. But anyway, I think the answer to your question is that for that beginning scene where the girl gets murdered, she's Larry Cohen's daughter.
Really? Oh.
And she dies in all his films that he writes, that she appears in. So I think that was just him, adding her to the film and killing her off as he usually does.
You must have been so afraid, Cassie. And you saw a cop.
Here's something for Archers of Horror fans out there. The first killing, which most of this movie was shot in LA, but there's like a couple of New York things.
Yeah, obviously the St. Patrick's Day parade.
Yeah. But was that opening scene St. Mark's Place?
I think so, because that definitely looked New York.
Yeah. And so I think that maybe that was the same street where Brian in Brain Damage has his big moment.
Definitely has, like, the thing about Maniac Cop that I do like is the look of it. It definitely has that feel of like a Frank Henenlotter film, or even it has a feel like Blood Rage, just that look, that aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I always love seeing like old New York, like just the grittiness.
Yeah, the whole city's going to hell. You can't take a pee anywhere anymore.
It's so crazy because it's a lot of these Larry Cohen movies are mostly shot in LA, but they really feel like New York.
They really do. I felt like the chase scenes though were the LA, like the end chase scene had to be LA. Whenever they like,
oh yeah,
were out on the streets like in broad daylight, I felt like that was LA.
Well, in that last scene, also you could see like mountains in the distance.
But I mean, what did you think of the look of the film?
I thought it was cool. I thought that there was like some kind of cool like long dolly shots that were like moody and had more style than something like fucking Hellgate.
Yeah, everything about Hellgate was horrible. I haven't even recovered from that film yet, especially having to watch it numerous times on YouTube to get sound clips.
Oh God,
I can't get over that one.
Oh God.
Hi, honey. Do you have that apple pie ready that I ordered from my daddy?
Like, it was weird. Like, I enjoyed Maniac Cop, but when I finished, I was just kind of like, huh.
Yeah.
Didn't love it.
Actually, for the first half hour or so, I thought that I was like, wow, I actually really like this. And then it really kind of loses, like, it follows Bruce Campbell, it follows Tom Atkins, then Tom Atkins dies, and you're kind of like, I can be done with this movie now.
Yeah, I think that's it's a great way to sum it up. When Tom Atkins dies is where it kind of loses momentum.
See ya.
You know what I was wondering? Is who's friends with Sam Raimi? Because didn't he direct, or didn't he shoot the St. Patrick's Day parade?
Yeah.
Is he friends with the director, which we didn't even mention yet, William Lustig? I don't really know much about his career.
I don't know much about his career either, but I know that he also directed Maniac.
Yes.
He mostly is the CEO of that company, Blue Underground. So, Blue Underground, they're kind of like a predecessor to Arrow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're like a DVD, Blu-ray releasing company of like, I think their most recent release is what's that Vietnam movie Bob Clark directed, Death Dream?
Oh, I know that movie.
But I think they're basically kind of like an Arrow, but they don't do as nice presentation. But when they first were really going, they were, big player on that scene.
Nice. Isn't he doing a remake of Maniac Cop? Isn't that what he's working on now?
I've heard that Nicholas Winding Refn of Drive and Only God Forgives and the Pusher trilogy and Neon Demon, and I guess I won't have to say all of his credits, Valhalla. But I heard that he was directing Maniac Cop, which would actually be interesting. But his company has the rights to like a lot of remakes, including from the Archers of Horror not favorite, What Have You Done to Solange?
You already forgot the title.
What Have They Done?
Isn't it What Have They? Yeah, What Have They Done?
I feel that all are guilty. Rusty, I wish you'd watch the features because the interview with Tom Atkins and the interview with Larry Cohen have some good moments.
I did watch a little bit of the Lorene, what's her name? Lorene Landon?
Yeah.
I couldn't get over, geez, how much plastic surgery did she have?
Wow. That's not the kind of judgmental things we say on here.
But I'm not, no, well.
You don't even know. People
have,
first of all, plastic surgery is a valid thing. And some people like me have it and you wouldn't even know.
What have you had done?
Calf implants, bicep implants, abs,
buttocks implant.
I'm being turned into the perfect man. It's just like that Tales from the Crypt episode with that guy who goes, "Hello."
I keep forgetting that guy's name, but he was from Christmas Vacation, right? That guy,
William Hickey. I actually remember.
William Hickey.
My brain's not completely destroyed.
I was thinking Jack Guilford.
But there was a good anecdote on that. Like this guy came up to Tom Atkins and was like, "Hey, I know you." And Tom Atkins was like, "Yeah, I'm an actor." And he's like, "No, I know. I was an actor with you in Maniac Cop." And he was the guy who is also in The Stuff. In The Stuff, he plays the clerk. Remember? And in Maniac Cop, he's one of the background cops or whatever.
You got which one? The creep. There's a lot of creepy background cops, like the one that like doesn't want to book Lorene Landon. It's not that.
I can't remember what he does, but in The Stuff, he's the guy who.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but Chocolate Chip Charlie and Michael Moriarty visit him, and he like acts weird. And he like freaks out in the other room.
Yeah.
How
do you remember?
Anyway,
Charlie, how do you remember that?
He was an amazing character, kung fu expert.
Garrett Morris.
His family took his ice cream from him.
I feel like I'm getting older that I can't remember things as well. I'm impressed that you can remember Chocolate Chip Charlie because I would not have known that.
And you got to let me get to the end of this anecdote because it's the only thing I also remember.
Okay, go.
So Tom Atkins, he saw this guy, and it turns out that his son is Jamie Dixon, who is an American basketball coach and the current head coach of the TCU Horned Frogs men's basketball team. But he was previously the head coach of the University of Pittsburgh men's basketball team.
Oh.
Is that guy's son. Check this out. Annual salary, $3.2 million.
Really?
Yet student loan debt is like $1 trillion. I think that's a problem.
How do you know all this information?
Well, I was reading from Wikipedia, but the last part was just editorial from me.
Wait, did you say that was Tom Atkins' son, or was it the other guy's son?
It's the other guy's son.
Oh, okay. Because Tom Atkins has a son too. Isn't he like an actor?
No, he's Muhammad Atta.
Wow. I don't think Tom Atkins would appreciate that.
Nice sense of humor.
Tom Atkins has never, he's like, I've never had such a baseless accusation made about my family.
Yeah, I mean, up until the accusation of him being gay and his partner dying in 2004.
Oh, yeah.
That's like the hoax that they can't get rid of.
I saw. Wait, the hoax they can't get rid of. What do you mean? I saw it. I looked. I was like, oh, that's cool. He's gay. And then I googled about it. I was like, can't find anything about him being gay.
No, like, and he's like upset about it because he's not, he's married and has children, and yet like somebody keeps posting it, and there's like articles written about it. There's like it's a hoax thing that he's gay, and it's like such a random person to pick.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's giving him cover on the whole Muhammad Atta connection.
Oh my God.
Tom, I love you, Tom.
I wonder, do you think he's nice in real life? Like, if you met him, or do you think he's bitter? Like at a convention, if you just like went up there and started to make chit chat, like, "Yo, Fog, man."
He seemed like an incredibly nice guy. But sometimes monsters have the faces of angels. You said you've got some scenes to talk about. Now I'm curious about these scenes. I've been hearing a lot about these scenes.
There's two scenes that I want to talk about just because I'm curious about your take on them. But the first thing is our introduction to Jack Forrest, who is played by Bruce Campbell.
Mm-hmm. Bruce is a friend.
He's kind of, yes, he hangs out in your basement and watches horror films.
I forgot about that. That's a funny memory.
But so apparently with him, he's having a surreptitious affair with one of his coworkers, Lorene Lambden, whatever her name is. And his wife is highly suspicious.
I didn't know you were on duty tonight.
Yeah, well, with all the flu going around, they had to put a lot of us on overtime.
Always at night?
And she's getting some information fed to her from who is MANIAC COP's on and off girlfriend.
Why does Jack keep killing people?
Now, my question to you is, how long has that been going on, and why her and why them? Like, it was never made clear why he was the fall guy, why Jack Forrest is being set up. And how do they know?
That's true.
I think she kind of explains how they knew. They knew because remember in a brief moment, she tells Atkins that like, whatever her character's name is like the den mother to them all.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel comfortable talking to her, which is like a throwaway thing, but it kind of explains it. But I felt by her character, she seemed very much a loner and not very social.
The poor soul threw herself out a window trying to kill herself. It's a terrible thing for a Catholic girl to do.
It's Sally Nolan, played by Sheree North. And I'm sure you know who she is, right?
Barely. Why don't you tell the people at home?
I looked her up, and as soon as I looked her up, and I recognized her from two key roles. The first one is she's Kramer's mom on Seinfeld, Babs.
What are you talking about?
Not a bad impression. And also she was Blanche's no good sister on Golden Girls. She needed a kidney transplant.
Now you've got my attention.
So is it? Yeah. So Sheree North put the character Sally Nolan, and she seemed like such a loner. Even like Atkins said, like it was a face that you wouldn't look at. Like he never even realized she was there. So it didn't seem like she was the den mother type, and it seemed like nobody would probably interact with her. But I guess they had to, like you said, they had to tie everything in together somehow, and that was like the throwaway line. Back to that scene. So Jack Forrest, he's not really that much of a likable character. He's kind of scummy. He's cheating on his wife. She's afraid of him. She apparently thinks he's going to hurt her, and he kind of tells her he's not.
Have I ever hurt you?
I know it's wrong to be afraid of my own husband, but
Now, why couldn't you say that to the therapist? Why couldn't you simply say, I'm afraid of him, and I don't know why?
And as soon as he leaves, the phone rings, and it's Sally Nolan again, telling him that he's the maniac cop. So she was already suspicious. So how long have these calls been going on for? Since the murder started, or was it being set up before that?
It seems like it was being set up before that.
Before what, the maniac cop started his murders, or like right at the same time?
Because she says like, why do you keep calling here? And it's pretty early in the proceedings.
And it's established that she's like on the verge of a nervous breakdown because she's in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
She's very unstable because Bruce Campbell kind of points that out. Yet in the same sentence, he says, "Don't worry, you have a gun that you know how to shoot." Is that really the person? Is she really the person you want handling a gun?
maybe I'm just sleeping too much. You know, they say that can be depressing to a person. You know, too much sleep.
The one last thing I want to say about Jack Forrest, because it was very baffling. But do you remember when he leaves to go have, meet up with Lorene and have their little tryst, and like his wife follows him.
Yeah.
And she gets the key and she walks into the hotel room and she hears like moaning, which they're clearly engaged in sex. And when she turns
but I think
why?
I think the misdirect was supposed to be that she thinks, and we might think there's a chance that the maniac cop is him.
Right.
So I think those sounds were supposed to be that he could have been torturing someone or something.
Well, I would have preferred to see that, but when the light was turned on, she was like doing him. She was like working him from behind. Nobody would get into spooning position that quickly. So I want to know what sex act they were performing and add it to the repertoire.
I liked how Bruce Campbell handled that moment where he was just like, I didn't want you to find out like this.
Yeah, but I think that's what any I don't want to say guy, any person would say if they were busted.
You have every right to hate us both. But let me just try and explain.
I don't want to hear another word.
His wife was killed right after she left the hotel. He never showed any kind of empathy or what's it called?
Emotion,
yeah. He did not care that his wife was brutally murdered. I mean, jumping around. You know what the most comical scene is?
No, what is it?
And I feel like Sam Raimi, who is, I guess, friends with either Larry Cohen or the director, kind of had him add a little bit of humor or corniness to it. Because there's one scene, and I don't know if you remember it, but it's so corny, the joke. Do you remember the cops that like are like coming up the stairwell and they run into Bruce Campbell after he's like, I guess, escapes prison or escapes detainment, and and like Bruce Campbell has a gun and he tells them to like freeze and drop their gun, and they get down the floor, and like he's just like, I didn't do anything, I didn't kill them, and like, sure you didn't, kind of like that old timey thing, but then he flees. And the one cop says to the other one, shouldn't we go after him? And the cop responds like,
You heard him. He didn't do it.
I thought that was funny, though.
You did think that was funny?
Yeah.
I thought that was corny. It didn't fit.
We haven't even mentioned, you want to hear a weird coincidence. The actor who played Maniac Cop, Robert Zadar.
Yeah, Zadar.
I had never heard of him. Then the other night, I have half in the bag on randomly as I'm doing my like getting ready for bedtime stuff. And they mentioned Robert Zadar and then joked about him being dead. And I was like, who is this guy? Then
he is dead though.
I look up Maniac Cop and I see Robert Zadar. And that's like a day later. I was like, oh, same guy. And I learned that he had a condition.
Oh, he had to with that chin. And
yeah, cherubism.
Oh, that sounds cute.
I thought might hit close to home for you because I know you got chubby cherub mint in box for Nintendo.
I wish it was mint in box. I wish I had it still. I could have been retiring and not doing this podcast. The ending. Well, all right, spoiler alert. But in the end, spoiler alert. In case anyone was wondering, the climax of Bruce Campbell escaping prison, or actually he gets thrown in a paddy wagon, and Maniac Cop drives off in it, and he takes him back to his hiding place, which is like a pier that they're about to tear down, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so they're fighting it out in the warehouse, and then Maniac Cop runs back to the paddy wagon and drives off, and Bruce Campbell like takes the wheel from the side and like winds up driving into the river. Bruce Campbell gets he survives it, and they fish the paddy wagon out, and the Maniac Cop's nowhere to be found. And then he emerges, his arm emerges, and that's the end of the film.
Yeah.
You would think, but the time it takes to hoist that thing out of the river, it had to be at least an hour minimum. Would he have drowned by that point?
It was like they wanted to have the ominous, like there's going to be a sequel ending, but
it's Friday the 13th kind of thing.
Yeah, but in Friday the 13th, Jason comes out and like mauls someone and like pulls them into the water with him. This was just a limp hand coming out of the water and then kind of like falling back under the water. You're like, okay.
How man, that was a close call for the stuntman. That was supposed to be Bruce Campbell. He almost had that paddy wagon land on his head.
I had to watch that twice because I was like, that was that as dangerous as it looked? It really looked fucking crazy.
That did look crazy. That was so close. That's like the what if you haven't seen the movie, check that scene out on YouTube. And how come when they're fishing the paddy wagon now, because they don't have any real record of the Maniac Cop yet, that Bruce Campbell's off the hook. Like he's just watching with them as they're taking it out.
That always happens in every movie. Like when they never really explain.
Where was he presumed innocent?
It'd be a crazy sequel if it was just about like Bruce Campbell's trial, where he's like trying to explain, like, okay, the Maniac Cop really is real. But when Maniac Cop is reaching out of the water at the end, that seemed like a big '80s thing. That kind of like we're gonna set up a sequel by having a person come out of like liquid at the end. Like Skeletor, I'll be back, Messy Tessie at the end of Garfield Kids, I'll return.
I don't remember that as the ending.
That's not, I have no idea.
I like that you picked the GBK.
I don't even know, man. It's fronted by GPKs all the time, so that's why.
Remember our introduction to when Bruce Campbell reveals that he's having an affair with Lorene? I can't remember her name. Is it Lorene Landon?
Yeah. Lorene Landon.
What's her character's name? Teresa, I think. I'm just going to say Teresa.
Oscar Schindler.
When it's revealed that he's having an affair with Oscar Schindler, Atkins is like, well, where is she? And she's like out doing undercover work for a prostitution sting.
Yeah.
That interaction she has with that creepy guy. Was that anybody? Was that Sam Raimi in that car? Who was that guy?
Ciao, baby.
Oh, no, I don't know who that was, but very typical of a Larry Cohen related movie. I got to say this for old Larry. He always, and I know this is not directed by him, but all the Larry Cohen movies, every character is kind of a memorable, weird person. He doesn't waste anything.
Yeah. Like when he's just like, oh, I'm going to go home to my wife.
But I'll be thinking of you, baby.
Yeah.
For just like a minor character that has like 2 lines.
Yeah. Or like the mortician who they made weird. Like everyone they always kind of make weird and memorable.
That was actually Larry Cohen's real doctor.
Oh, interesting.
But in the prostitution scene, when she's like she walks into the alley and she's confronted by the Maniac Cop, and she starts firing into him. How many bullets did she say she shot into him? Like 2 clips or whatever. But in that scene, the scene that's bizarre to me is when Tom Atkins shows up. What was his name anyway? We never said his actual character's name. McCree? Well, McCree's Overwatch. McCree.
What are you talking about?
He's also firing his weapon at Maniac Cop. But as he's firing, he's running closer and closer. Like, what cop would be taught to fire their weapon and run towards the assailant?
That's what I teach my men.
That's why they're all dead. But as he runs closer, what do you think? He gets slashed by the knife. That baton or the knife being like unsheathed from the baton. That's quite the trope in the film. How many times did they show that?
Oh, so many times. They're like, I felt like every time they showed that, I felt like it was kind of like a small acknowledgement of guilt. Where they're like, we know this is not a great weapon for the Maniac Cop, but we're going to try to like turn it up by keep showing you this shot. So it seems like a real cool thing. Yeah.
Do you have any scenes that you want to talk about?
Well, I do want to say that it's funny also in the Larry Cohen interview, keeping with the Arrow video, like inappropriate things said in interviews. He mentioned how he's like, I always wanted to get a stuntman to replace Robert Z'Dar because I thought that would work better. I tried in the first one. No one would listen to me. I tried the second one. No one would listen to me in the third one. I guess I just gave up. I really wanted a stuntman to replace him, though. I was like, wow, that's crazy to say about actor in your films.
But why, though? Like, what did he do wrong?
He was like, I just wanted someone with more, and he like searches for the word. He's like mobility, agility.
But I think I liked it that he was so rigid. Like it gave him more of like the presence of being on.
I was reading a review. Yeah, I was reading a review of this, and it was saying that he does a really good job because he has got a lot of presence every time he appears without even saying a word. I got to say that was true. I didn't really think of it, but then he does like whenever you see the Maniac Cop, you're like, oh shit, there's the guy.
Yeah. No, that's the one thing I have to disagree with Larry Cohen about. Maybe it's not the only thing, but I liked Robert Z'Dar's performance. I didn't love the makeup though, but
Yeah, the makeup was kind of random and not great.
the only thing I didn't like is that when he got impaled by that, like I don't know what that was. It was something on the dock, but it impaled him in the chest. Like he screamed, and I thought, like, he didn't scream getting shot. Why would he scream now? I would have liked if he just remained silent and just plunged into the icy river.
You have the right. You have the right to remain silent forever.
Is that the tagline?
That is. It's a pretty good tagline too.
Yeah, that is a good tagline. You know, one other thing that I think, a more serious note that we should just mention.
Oh,
one of the more polarizing scenes in the film is the common person on the street talking about the Maniac Cop, the police brutality.
I've seen plenty of my friends murdered by cops, shot in the back, shot when they didn't have a gun or a knife, claiming the suspect had a shiny object. You know, cops like killing. That's why they're cops. Yeah. Who's going to be next, huh?
Which I have to say, Larry Cohen, I think, is ahead of his time with the social commentary.
Oh, always, yeah.
I mean, like, a part of me was just like, wait, this came out in 87, so this predates, like, you know, the famous Rodney King incident, and even in, like, the Amadou Diallo and the Abner Louima. So this is like, and I looked it up. I looked up police brutality cases around 87 to 90, and there really wasn't any, like, that were highly publicized. So kudos to Larry Cohen. And I think that was, like, one of the factors that made me appreciate the film.
Yeah. Although I think it made me think, though, that, you know, Maniac Cop, it just feels like it could have been a better story, like, if it tied into that stuff more directly, if Maniac Cop's actions were more like, it's not that satisfying, like, looking at the people who are in this movie. Tom Atkins is like a cop investigating. That's not too great. And Bruce Campbell is a cop who is, like, getting framed for it. That's not too great. Like, we kind of needed, like, the Heather Langenkamp kind of, like, everyman character in there, you know? So, like, I don't know. In my remake of Maniac Cop, it would be kind of like, it would address these issues head on.
Do you think in the remake of Maniac Cop they're going to have more of a backstory to Matt Cordell?
Well, they got to change his name. Matt Cordell is not a great name. Yeah. Like, they need something like Detective Death.
Do you think they should make him more of, like, a Wraith-like character? Or do you think they should keep him, like, ambiguous whether he's really alive or dead?
I prefer I like the killers, you know, it's like they always start out alive and then they become dead. Mm-hmm. Like Jason is, and Jason,
well, he started out alive, but yeah.
He starts out alive, but I never buy that because they still do stuff that's just supernatural. So start out dead. That's what I say.
See, you know what I like that this didn't have in, like, many other horror films is that he didn't, like, mysteriously vanish. Like, they turn away for a second and then he's gone. Like,
he does in the dock scene with Shereen North.
Oh, when she, like, turned, like, when she fires the gun. But that's almost more believable, though, because she's, you know, she's firing and looking, so he could have just, like, walked off and she wouldn't have heard him leave if she was firing their gun. Like, it wasn't like a quick head turn. But
Matt, where are you? I need you, Matt. You need me.
Ross, you got anything else to say about Maniac Cop?
What do you think about the last thing I just want to say is, what do you think about Tom Atkins dying midway through, where you thought he was going to be the hero and he just vanishes?
It could have been much more effective because you thought he was the hero, but then Bruce Campbell comes in and kind of takes the movie over, and then it's kind of muddy because you don't know who the protagonist is, and then Tom Atkins eventually dies.
Yeah, I was thinking, if, like, where you said earlier, if the film ended after he died, and then if you had Lorene Landon kill the Maniac Cop after that in some kind of, like, exchange, I would have been fine with that. But yeah, I feel like I do like when the hero or the believed hero dies, but it just didn't work as well in this film.
Yeah, it felt really random.
But I did like his performance.
Yeah, no, he was cool.
Even that scene when he was, like, saying, like, it's a cop, I know it's a cop. And he's just like, but you tried to off yourself, kind of thing. And he's just like, yeah, like, when my partner died. But then it's like, can't you just smile? Yeah. But remember, like, the other guy, the guys, it's like, can't you just smile? And he does this, like, weird look at the camera and, like, tries to, like, get a smile going.
I know. I was like, who are you? Me in a photo?
It's so good for that moment. Why the commissioner? Because the commissioner covered up everything. The commissioner didn't send them to Sing Sing.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a fucking mess, but I liked it.
Yeah, it is a mess.
I recommend.
I would say it's worth seeing. It's the kind of movie that I feel like you could imagine it being like it's kind of a cooler idea than it is in execution. So I could see the sequels being kind of more fun. And just like in general, if I was like in that kind of like horror fandom world, I'd be like, yeah, Maniac Cop. I could see being really into it.
It wasn't dull though. It was an entertaining film for what it was.
Yeah.
So I mean, would you say it's a good movie? No, but would you be entertained? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would recommend it as well.
Little shout out. Recently, Louise Lasser's birthday.
Oh. By the way, one last thing about Maniac Cop. Jake LaMotta appeared in the film. Where was he? I couldn't find him.
I have no idea.
Jake LaMotta is related to the director. I think he's like an uncle.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, so he was somewhere in the movie. So I did not spot him. But happy birthday, Louise Lasser.